Hello, if you're watching me for the first time, my name is Arno from Wine Investor. Here we talk about investments and entrepreneurship. And the concept is clear. You like and share the video as much as you can. You subscribe and most importantly activate the notification clock so as to always be in premier on all our videos. Why is it that wine should be interesting to you as an investor who's either new to the passive investment world or someone who was massively invested, for example, in the real estate sector? Well, you have to know that if you've invested or if you're a real estate investor, you want at a particular point in time to also invest, allocate a part of your capital to other investments in order to diversify your portfolio and in order to mitigate the risk. And what you're going to be doing at this time is to invest in other asset classes that are much more decoupled from this conventional market, such as real estate, stock exchange, which are markets that are really highly correlated with each other. Okay, and wine offers you that. Why? Wine is a secured market simply because investing in fine wine means investing in valuable objects, value objects, and these are rare objects, fine art, and this means these are objects that require even at the minimum prices a certain substantial amount of money, and so these are objects that are restrained to a certain category of people, which we call billionaires and billionaires in dollars. We have about 62.5 million billionaires and millionaires in dollars in the world, and this number is increasing steadily, more or less at about 10%. However, a lot of these people, of course, they want to spend money. These are people who've worked hard in their life. They've saved a lot of money. They've invested. They've sacrificed a lot, and they've reached a point where they want to enjoy life. Life is short at a point in time, so you have to do that. You have to enjoy life when you make money because you need a lot of money to enjoy it very well. So at this particular point in time, they just want to enjoy it, and they will definitely go, for la creme de la creme. So they will want to get the most rare products, the most rare commodities and goods that one will ever find on the planet. So, and as far as wine is concerned, we're talking here about fine wines market, which is valued at about $330 million a year. So this is about 0.1% of the total world wine market, and this is a market which is definitely restrained to people who have more than 60% of the total wealth on the planet. So this shows you how rare fine wine is. This means at any particular point in time, fine wines are always going to have a certain high value. You will never have wines simply losing completely 50-20% of the values you can see in other investment sectors. The second thing, important aspect, which makes fine wine and fine art in general very important, very secure, is that you will never have politics and cultural aspects affect the dynamics of this market, because as we've seen in the real estate, for example, the government can decide in certain financial crisis or in certain crisis to take some decisions that will affect the prices of the real estate. But you will never see that, for example, in fine wine. Who cares? We're talking here about luxury products. The government has nothing to do here. You might see, for example, in Germany, the government who will try to negotiate with Volkswagen to stop increasing the price of Volkswagen Golf, because this is one of the which is a car which is mostly driven by a lot of middle class people, and they need cars to drive to work. But you will never see the government telling Mercedes, for example, to reduce the price of a Mercedes Maybach or of a Mercedes X600 or whatever, because these are luxury products and they are meant for a particular set of people who have money already and who want to spend. These are not people who are still trying to maintain a certain basic life standard. Very important, very, very important. Well, investing in wine, of course, it's a school. It's a complex, system. You need to know what exactly you're doing, because we are not talking about buying, a share Tesla, a share Tesla for about 50 euros or about 30 euros or whatever, as it might have been the case for the last 6, 7, 8 years, we're talking about investing in bottles that cost about 500, 600, and most of the time these bottles come in cases. So you're going to be buying a case of 6 bottles at the price of 500 euros each. So you're buying a case of at 3,000 euros. So these are investments that are kind of substantial in value, and you have to be pretty much careful about the kind of choices you make. And definitely you need to develop a strategy. I'll give you here 3 key points that will help you understand what investing in wine consists of. The first point is that you need to define the region of origin. Okay, we have a lot of countries today producing fine wine. There are exceptional wines outside here in the world. We have wine from Bordeaux, we have wine from Burgundy. Let me just write it here: Bordeaux, Burgundy, Champagne. Okay, you have a lot of wines from Italy, Barolo, Barbaresco. You have a lot of wine from Spain. You have a lot of wine from the United States, from Napa Valley. You have a lot of wine from Chile. These are the most important regions. Of course, there are more than 15 countries in the world today who produce good quality wines that can be considered as fine wines. Right? In these countries, you also have a lot of regions, but you need to consider a particular region, not just a country, particular region, because we can decide to divide here Italy. You have Tuscany, you have Veneto, because Veneto, that's where you have the Amarone, which is a region where you have the Amarone. It's it's a kind of wine which has very very high potential of increasing in value. Well, the thing which you need to know here is that if you start investing in wine, you are starting maybe with a capital of 4,000 euros, 5,000 euros. So you will not try to diversify your portfolio extensively. You don't want to buy one bottle of wine from Bordeaux, one from Burgundy, one from Champagne, one from Italy, one from USA, one from Chile. You need to understand first of all how the market in these particular regions function. So you need to concentrate, on 1 or 2, 3 regions. So you can choose Bordeaux, Burgundy, Bordeaux, Champagne, Italy, Burgundy, or whatever. Just 3 regions, and as more as you make money with your first investments, and as more as you also invest more capital in the business, you can start extending, your area of vision. Okay, very important. The second thing, which is I need to mention here, is that, well, if we take for example Bordeaux, you have to know what we call the classifications. Classifications, very very important. Well, I cannot go too deep into this, topic in this very video, which is meant to be very short. But I want to let you know that knowing the classification will also affect the price of a wine, because you might have the standard classification from 1855, back from the Napoleon time, which has been maintained over this time at club. I think it was changed just once after a request of the Rothschild family. But up to today, it's quite, it's maintained the position. So all the chateaus in the list in the classification have maintained their position, and so this means we have chateaus that have maintained a position for over 170 years. And these are chateaus on which you can count because they have a good history in terms of value, and investing in one of these chateaus is definitely making more or less a secure investment. But you also have on the other side of Bordeaux, such as in Saint-Emilion, you have another classification system which is renewed every year. So different wine houses are rated after every 10 years, I think so. So you have a new classification, and some chateaus can decide to get out of the classification, as the case of Chateau Angelus. The last renewal of the Saint-Emilion classification was in 2022, this year. So and Chateau Angelus, which has always been at the top, decided to get out of the classification simply because they were not more happy with the conditions, the system which the classification body used in order to rate new chateaus. And well, this doesn't make it a bad chateau, because you have, for example, in Pomerol, which is a region where you have no classification, you have chateaux such as Chateau Petrus, which makes very, very fine wines at very, very great prices and with very, very important returns on investment. But knowing that the year 2021 was the year in which Chateau Angelus will have the classification on its front label, can make it a very, very expensive wine in years to come, even though the 2021 vintage was not actually a great vintage. So it's important to understand the classification system. The second point I want to talk here is that you need to have access to information. Okay? You need to have access to information. You cannot invest in wine, or you cannot make any investment, any reasonable investment as a passive investor, just by taking decisions depending on your emotions. You need to have data. You need to be data driven. So you need to know the prices. You need to know the production. You need to know the critics. What do I mean by this? Well, the prices, of course, you need to know if it's at any point in time, if it's a good time to buy a particular wine, or if it's a good point in time to sell a wine you already have in your portfolio. So you need to have access to prices. And wine is, of course, an alternative investment, but it's one of the very rare alternative investments where you have, standard tools which are used, for example, in the standard market, such as, stock exchange. You have the LiveX platform, which is a platform based in London, which gathers, information on the wine prices. So any person buying, when rich people want to buy a 5,000 euro wine bottle, they just buy it from anybody. They go to a classified merchant, and this merchant are all active on this platform, and they give information about the wine they sell, they have sold every day, every week, every month, and the price. So this platform is going to, rate and make an average of all the prices depending, on the data gathered from all over the world. And when I talk about a particular wine, I'm not just talking about Chateau Margaux. I'm talking about Chateau Margaux 2020, 2016, 2015, because the combination of the vintage and the chateau makes that index, which is going to be, rated, or whose value is going to be, gathered over time, So very important when we're talking about investing in wine, we're talking about investing in particular chateau and particular vintage. Very important. The production is also very important, because you need to understand the amount of cases, the amount of wines or bottles that a chateau has produced every year. If Chateau Margaux, for example, decides to produce 100,000 cases, or has produced, not even that they decide, everything is determined by the climate, So if there is less, too much sun, you might have less yield than under normal conditions. So you will have, for example, less cases. But if, for example, this year, Chateau Margaux, in 2019, Margaux has, for example, 100,000 cases. Okay? And in the next year, you have, let me just say 80,000 cases. Okay? The next year, which may be 2021, could be an important year, simply because the lesser you have and the amount of available cases by the time the wine is introduced into the market, the faster this wine is going to become more and more rare. And this is going to increase the value of the wine, because we're talking here about fine art, and fine art is mostly affected by its availability. Okay? Third point, critics. Very important. This is one of the most important points. You need to know that if you are investing in wine. No one invests in wine if he doesn't know this. You have to know that we have certain critics. Luckily enough, we don't have too much of them. Of course, there are so many wine, experts in the world, but very few of them are allowed to give information that are going to tremendously affect the behavior of a lot of stakeholders on the market. The first one known over the world is Robert Parker. It's an American. with a lot of experience. He is responsible for the fact that the Chinese invaded the bottle market some years back. He is now retired. He left an institution known as the Robert Parker Wine Advocate, and they rate wines every year. So these are people who are allowed, to go to chateau, taste the wine, even before the wine is even put into the bottle. We're going to come to the point later. But even when the wine is introduced to the market, they taste it and give, value. So Robert Parker rates wine on 100. He'll give a grade on 100. It could be 97 on 100, or it could even be 100 on 100. Okay, very important. The second one is Jancis Robinson. It's an English woman, English wine critic. Also, refraining from this activity. As time goes by, I think she's already getting old. These are all people with more than 30, 40 years of experience in the wine, industry. She rates wine on 20. So Robert Parker, if you have a wine above 90, you could consider it very good. But as an investor, the more you're tending towards 100, the more you're making, a good choice. Jancis Robinson, I think everything above 17 on 20 is a good one. You also have other critics in terms of institutions such as Wine Decider, James Sucklings, and all that. Okay, very important. Well, you need to know the region where you're acting. You need to have information about the kind of wines. The wines you wanna handle, the one you have, the one you have in your portfolio. Because having a portfolio means managing different assets. I need to have information about their performance at any point in time. Well, I have a third point, which is a very important point, because you will understand why I had to talk about real estate before. As a wine investor, you're managing a portfolio, and you are always going to try to maintain or better your position. Okay, maintain or better your position. What does that mean? You are holding, a portfolio of wine, and they remain the same bottles over time, but their values are going to change, and this is going to depend, for example, on things that happen in the market. For example, you might have good bottles of Chateau Margaux 2020. I'm not making any advertisement here for Chateau Margaux, but I want you to know that you can have Chateau Margaux 2020. It's going to have a good increase in value over time, but at a point in time, you would also have Chateau Margaux 2023, 2024 getting to the market. So you need to understand how the 2020 you still have in your portfolio is behaving, and decide whether it's still important to maintain it in your portfolio or not. Okay, so the first thing you need to know here is that wine has the advantage that, as I said before, it cannot be affected by socio-political decisions. But however, the behavior of your portfolio is going to depend on inherent characteristics that the wines have. And this is described by this curve. Okay, I will explain that. So what you need to know is that when the wine comes out, or is introduced to the market, it has a certain value. I mean, in terms of the taste. On a scale of 0 to 100, it might be 80. Okay, 80%, and this is going to increase because we say fine wine gets better all the time. Okay, this is a statement that is used in different cases, and the wine is going to reach a certain point. We call this point, taken from the French, apogee. This is the climax where you can have the maximum satisfaction in terms of the taste. Okay, so because the wine is not an eternal product, of course you can still have a wine that you can drink even after 40, 50 years, but it's not going to have, at 50 years, it's not going to be that very same experience you would have had if you drank the wine at this particular point, or just sometime just before it. Okay, so this is what we call the climax. Okay, and when the wine is released in the market, the critics are going to taste the wine and say, okay, yeah, we believe that the wine at this point has some taste, is going to have, this wine has a great future, and we believe that If this is a wine from the year 2019 and it's being tasted, for example, introduced in 2021 on the market, and the experts say, okay, yeah, we believe that by 2024, this, or 2026, this wine could have, 2026 could have maybe a good, could start having one will get a real satisfaction from this point in time. Okay, and like I said, let me just say 2034. After this year, the wine is still going to be drinkable, but it's not going to have that maximum satisfaction. So you can see we have these two important values, which we call BA, BF, best after, best before. Best after means if you have a wine you are investing in, you need to know the period before which it's not advisable to drink the wine, and after which it's advisable to drink the wine, and best before the period or the year before which is advisable to drink or is recommended to drink the wine. Very important, because these are going to affect the price of the wine. A wine released on the market will have a tendency to have an increase, a substantial increase in price in this time, because the more we approach this period, the more the wine is going to increase in value. And after this year, the wine is going to decrease, because we said this is a wine which is restrained to people who have a lot of money. And they want to spend money, they always want to have like creme de la creme. So why will I be in 2034 still trying to maintain, or drink a wine, a Chateau Margaux, 2010, when we have Chateau Margaux 2015, 2018, which are very good wines and which are still coming. So, after the 2013, by that time, we'll have already crossed this limit. So I'm not more interested in that wine. It could be good, to drink and still have maybe 1 or 2 bottles of Chateau 2010 in my, cellar. But I mean, this is where the market is going to be hitting at that time. So you need to know exactly where you find your position at any point in time. Very important. Well, maintaining your position or bettering your position is also going to depend on the strategy you use to enter the market. There are 3 main strategies here. The first strategy, is what I call the risk and flip strategy. What's risk and flip strategy? It simply means you're taking a risk to buy a wine at a particular price to sell it later. Okay? Flipping means, just selling it. Okay, so this term is what conventionally we call this strategy en primeur. So you're buying wine when the wine is still in the in the wooden barricks, so it's still being aged. The wine is not yet bottled. Sometimes you're buying it mostly 1 year or sometimes more than 1 year before the wine is being put in the bottle. So at this point in time, you have these critics I talked about just before who will go to the chateaus, taste the wine, and say, okay, the wine is now being aged. The fermentation process is over, so we now have a basic wine. This wine is now being aged, and we can taste the wine, and we know that this wine is going to have a good future. But this judgment is going to be different from the judgment someone will have when the wine, or the same very critic could have by the time the wine is being, introduced to the market, is being bottled and introduced to the market. So when the wine critic is going to give a certain, grade on the wine still in the oak barracks, people will want to buy that wine in order to, reserve, we're talking here about rare products. So people want to buy it in order to maintain, to make sure that when the wine is introduced to the market, they'll be the first people to receive their bottles of wine. So they want to be rest assured that they have, a bottle of Chateau Margaux 2020 or 2021, whatever the case. Okay? So they'll be ready to pay money for that. But they're going to pay money, at about 300 euros, 400 euros a bottle, which will cost, by the time it's introduced to the market, could cost about 600, 800 euros. So you can see we're talking here about, making, a return of investment of more than 100% in just a year's time. But this is a risk. This is what it could cost. You could also have situations, and that has been the case in some houses, not in all, but most of the houses, the great chateaus in the world, they've always had increased value for people who invested in primeur. But we have some very few where some mistakes were done, where the wine, after being bottled and tasted again, was not really performing that in taste as it was expected, as it was predicted some time before. So your strategy is to benefit from these low prices while taking a risk of the fact that by the time the wine is coming to the market, it could cost maybe, instead of if you bought, for example, at 400 euros, it could cost maybe just 3 euros 50, 350 euros, for example. So you are losing 50 euros. Of course, the wine is going to get rare and gain in value, but still it's going to lose some value, because most of the wines that are rated less than what they were valued at in Premier by the time they introduce to the market are wines that will take time before increasing, because a lot of people are going to go away from that, and it's only when they're going to get more and more rare that people will try to buy it. So you are taking a risk in order to have a very fast gain in value. So after 1 year you have 100%. If you wait again 1 or 2 years, the more you get into this Bay A position, best after position, the wine is still going to increase in value. So you can easily, as an premier investor, as a risk and flipper, you can easily make 200, 300% after 3 or 4 years. Okay? Very, very important strategy. The second strategy is the buying and holding strategy. Okay? So you buy and you hold. These are wines that you always want to have in your portfolio. These are wines that you can sell at any time and make profit. Anytime I make profit, they are never going to really lose value over a long period of time, simply because these are wines that have the more you have time between the B and BF, because some wines just have maybe 8 years, some of them have 15 years, some have 20. So the more you have this, the more you have time in between these two periods, these are definitely wines that have great potential. And these are DMARC. These are wines that are, first of all, characterized by very good critic grade. So Robert Parker would definitely rate these wines above 97, 98%. Okay, definitely go for this one. But you cannot, as a smart investor, have 100% of your investments on these kind of wines, because these are wines that cost a lot of money at the start, because these are wines that are definitely meant to hit the market. So even by the time they are introduced, they have good rates and they cost a lot of money. So there are certain strategies which I'll be giving to you in one of my courses. I'm coming to that later, where that will tell you how to manage your portfolio in order to always be at the best point. Okay, very important. The third one, which is the most important one, okay, and that's why you understand why I was talking about the real estate. Okay, fix and flip. Fix and flip. Okay, fix and flip means you are just you are buying an asset which is actually, at the time you're buying, a little bit poor in condition, and it's going to get fixed to be sold back. Okay, so we're not going to buy a bottle of wine and try to fix the bottle. Okay, so the advantage with wine investment is that the fixing is going to be done automatically. It's a quite 100% passive investment. You don't have to run after anybody. Okay, so it's going to fix itself if you just do the right choice. And how do you do that? Okay, let me give you an example. If you have wine, you have a Chateau X or Chateau Y, which had good grades, for example, the year 2018, 2019, 2020. Okay, the climatic conditions were very good, so you had very good wines. And in the year 2021, you have a bad wine because the climatic conditions are not really that good, or maybe the winemaker made a silly mistake or whatever. Okay, and in the year 2022 and 2023, you have good wines. So this will be characterized, for example, by Robert Parker grades from let's say we have here 95, 97, 96, and here 90. Okay, then you have here 97 again, 98%. Okay, well, if you have this kind of arrangement, you definitely have to buy this wine. Well, the amount of cases you're going to buy for this wine is going to depend on certain strategies, which I don't want to talk about here. We'll be talking about that in my courses, but you have to put an eye on this wine, simply because the wine is definitely not good in value at a particular point in time, because it has I will not say this is not a bad grade. Like I said, everything above 90% for investment is good, but for a taste, everything above 85% actually is a good one. Okay, to drink. So it's quite a drinkable wine, but still, it's not that valuable at the moment, But you have to know that the price of a wine is not only, especially when we're talking about fine wine, it has nothing to do with the taste. If you're buying a bottle of wine that costs 15,000 euros, for goodness sake, that wine doesn't have, 150 times more taste, than 100 euros bottle. Okay? So, what affects the price of a wine is also its rarity. We said we're dealing with a market here, which is very rare. So, and we have a lot of people who are trying to buy that wine. And so some wines are going to increasingly gain in value by themselves if they get more and more rare. So what will happen here is that because this wine has a low value, a lot of rich people are going to consider this as a wine that they can drink at any time, because this is a wine that has almost no value. Okay, so they will try to maintain that 2018, 2019, 2021 because they know they can sell it at any time. For really good millionaires and billionaires who have great cellars in their mansions, full with expensive wines, they will always want to maintain wines with good value, because by the time they want to sell their real estate, they want to use the increase in price of those wines in order to make much more profit by selling that house. Okay, so they will make sure that they maintain the 18, 19, 20, maintain the 22, maintain the 23. By the 2021, they will say, okay, I can drink that. And that is where the magic happens, because the more people are going to drink that wine, the more it's going to disappear from the market, and at a particular point in time, it becomes rare. And that's where magic happens. So you're buying wine at relatively low price, and you just allow things to happen magically. Okay? Because when rich people at a point in time sit together and they're spending good time with each other and they are drinking good bottles of wine, they're not just drinking in 2018 or just in 2021 because it was good. They're always trying to compare 2020, 2021, 2022. It makes sense, when they're sitting with, have 10 people, 20 people. It's not just about getting drunk. It's about enjoying life, spending money, and spending it in a good manner. So we're talking about what happened in 2020. We're talking about what happened in 2021. What investments we did. Some people will say, 2021 and make 50% loss about $200 million or whatever. They'll be talking about it. 2022, what happened in 2022, and they're going to be accompanying discussions with different vintages. So instead of drinking 2020 and 2022, it's better to drink 2020, 2021, 2022. And if 2021 is rare, that's where it makes sense to sell that wine. And you're going to sell it at a price that you cannot imagine. Very important. Fix and flip is for people, it's not for people who are starting. You need to be an expert. You need to understand the market. You need to have access to information. You need to know how much bottles were produced. You need to know how many, the different ratings of the wine. You need to know how the wine has performed in the market. You need to know the chateau, which we're talking about here, how it has performed over the last years. What did the chateau do in order to increase, in quality? All this, very, very important. A lot of information here, which I just can't give in this video. We'll be talking extensively about all this in my training. We are preparing an exclusive course in wine investments, and we'll be, coming out with it next year. Well, for those of you who might be trying to reach out to me, it's not possible at the moment because we're working hard, on a website where you're going to have access to information, you're going to have contact, all information that you need in order to reach us out. So what you can do now, you can just comment this video, you can like, and by the start of the new year, you will have, information that will help you get into this new year with new ideas that will show you how to make money, not by taking money from people who barely have nothing, but taking money from people who have a lot and have a lot of money to spend. Well, thank you for watching. I'll give you a rendezvous in my next video. Ciao.